Asgard basked in its eternal glory, a kingdom suspended between the mortal realm and the divine. The golden towers gleamed under the shimmering light of the Bifrost, and its people, warriors, seers, and craftsmen, went about their lives with pride. All seemed peaceful, but deep beneath the nine realms, a storm brewed, and that storm had a name: Doomsday. The shadow of the invader loomed long before his arrival. Heimdall, the ever-watchful guardian of the Bifrost, first noticed it. Standing stoic at his post, his sight pierced through dimensions, and what he saw chilled him to his very core. A monstrosity, a being of incomprehensible power, tearing through realms with a single purpose: destruction. He sounded the horn of Gjallarhorn, its thunderous call echoing across Asgard. The skies darkened, and Odin Allfather himself emerged from his hall, spear Gungnir in hand, to assess the threat. Loki, ever the trickster, stood by, his usual smirk replaced with genuine concern. Thor, mighty yet brash, gripped Mjolnir tightly, already yearning for battle. Beside him stood Sif, his betrothed, her swords gleaming with an almost sacred light. Heimdall descended from his post. A creature unlike any we've faced approaches. Its power is immeasurable. It devours everything in its path. Odin's face, normally stoic and composed, was lined with grim determination. This will not be a battle of glory, but one of survival. Summon the Einherjar, fortify the gates, call upon the magic of the seers. Asgard must hold. Doomsday did not delay. The ground trembled beneath his monstrous footsteps as he approached, each step closer, sending waves of dread through even the bravest hearts. The Bifrost itself shuddered as he crossed into Asgard. He was unlike anything they had seen before, a towering figure of raw, primal rage, his body armored with jagged bone protrusions, his eyes glowing with malevolent fury. Thor led the charge, his war cry shaking the heavens as he hurled Mjolnir with all his might. The hammer struck Doomsday square in the chest, and for a moment all seemed still. But then, to Thor's horror, the creature barely flinched. Instead, it roared, a sound that seemed to tear the very fabric of reality. The battle began, fierce and unrelenting. The Einherjar, Asgard's mightiest warriors, fell like leaves in a storm. Loki conjured illusions and traps, but Doomsday saw through them, swatting him aside as if he were a mere insect. Sif fought valiantly, her blades dancing like fire, but even she could not land a decisive blow. Odin himself entered the fray, his power unmatched. Gungnir struck true, piercing Doomsday's armor, yet the creature adapted, growing stronger with every attack. It was as if he thrived on their defiance. Days turned into a blur of blood and chaos. Asgard burned, its once pristine halls reduced to ruins. The people fled, seeking refuge wherever they could. Thor fought tirelessly, his heart breaking with every fallen comrade. He watched helplessly as Sif, his love, fell in battle, her final act to shield him from a fatal blow. "No!" Thor roared, his grief fueling his strikes. But even his rage was not enough. Loki, battered but alive, approached Thor in the midst of the carnage. "We cannot win this, brother, not as we are." Thor clenched his fists, his mind clouded with despair. "Then what would you have me do? Abandon Asgard?" Loki's gaze softened, a rare moment of sincerity. "Not abandon. Seek the answers you need. There are mysteries even we do not fully understand, secrets that lie beyond the nine realms. Go, Thor, find the power to save Asgard. I will hold him off." Before Thor could protest, Loki leapt into the fray, his magic blazing with uncharacteristic selflessness. The sight of his brother, his ultimate sacrifice, left Thor paralyzed with grief. Heimdall, gravely wounded but still standing, approached Thor. "Loki's right. You must leave. There is a path that leads to the Well of Urd. It is said to hold the key to knowledge and power beyond comprehension. Go now." Thor hesitated, his heart torn between duty and despair. But as he looked upon the ruins of Asgard, the faces of his people, and the bodies of those he loved, he knew he had no choice. With one last glance at his fallen brother and the chaos behind him, Thor turned and began his journey into the unknown. The Bifrost's light carried him to a realm of shadows and secrets where answers waited, and with them, the power to save his home. Thor's steps echoed in the silence of the barren wasteland where the Bifrost had deposited him. This was no place of gods or mortals. It was a realm of forgotten whispers, shrouded in perpetual twilight, where the air itself seemed to hum with ancient secrets. He looked back at the fading light of the Bifrost, a stark reminder of the kingdom he had left behind, a kingdom in ruins, his people slaughtered and his family shattered. The weight of grief bore heavily on Thor, but he forced himself to move forward. Heimdall had spoken of the Well of Urd, a legendary source of wisdom guarded by the Norns, the weavers of fate. If there was even a chance that its waters could grant him the strength to defeat Doomsday, he had to find it. The first trial came almost immediately. As Thor trudged deeper into the realm, the ground beneath him shifted, and from the shadows emerged creatures unlike any he had faced before. They were wraiths, formless beings of malice, drawn to the despair that clung to him like a second skin. Their whispers invaded his mind, sowing seeds of doubt. You failed them. Sif died because of you. Loki's blood is on your hands. Thor gritted his teeth, clutching Mjolnir tightly. Be silent, he roared, the hammer glowing with divine energy as he swung it through the wraiths. Though they dissipated under the hammer's force, their voices lingered, gnawing at his resolve. Hours, or perhaps days, passed in this torment, as time seemed to lose meaning in the realm. Thor's body grew weary, but his determination remained steadfast. He pressed onward, guided only by the faint pull of the Well of Urd, which seemed to call to him like a distant melody. Finally, he arrived at the edge of a great chasm. Across it lay a massive tree, its roots twisting into the abyss below and its branches reaching into infinity. This was Yggdrasil, the World Tree, and at its base was the Well of Urd. But the path was not straightforward. A bridge of fragile branches stretched across the chasm, guarded by a towering figure cloaked in shadow. The figure stepped forward, revealing itself to be an ancient guardian, an amalgamation of beast and god. Its voice rumbled like thunder. "Thor Odinson, son of Odin, why do you seek the Well of Urd?" Thor raised his chin, his voice firm despite his exhaustion. "I seek the power to save my people, to restore Asgard and destroy the monster that threatens all I hold dear." The Guardian's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. "Many have sought the waters of the well, but few have been deemed worthy. To drink from its depths, you must surrender what binds you most tightly to this world." Thor's breath hitched. "And what is that?" "Your pride, your anger, your very sense of self." The words struck Thor like a physical blow. For as long as he could remember, his identity had been tied to his strength, his power, and his unyielding will. Could he truly let go of those things? The Guardian raised a massive hand, summoning a vision within the waters of the well. Thor saw the faces of those he had lost. Sif, her final smile as she shielded him. Loki standing defiantly against Doomsday. And Odin, his last words of wisdom echoing in Thor's mind. "Remember who you are, my son, and who you must become." Thor fell to his knees, the weight of their sacrifices pressing down on him. He thought of the people of Asgard, scattered and broken, and of the home they had lost. He thought of the monster that now sat upon his father's throne. He stood, his resolve hardening. "I will do whatever is required." The Guardian nodded solemnly. "Then step forward, Thor Odinson, and prove your worth." Thor crossed the fragile bridge, each step testing his balance and resolve. The whispers of the wraiths returned, louder and more insistent, but he pushed them aside. When he finally reached the Well of Erd, the Norns emerged, their forms shimmering with an ethereal glow. The eldest of them spoke. "You have come seeking power, but the power you seek comes with a cost. To drink from the well is to transform, to become something greater yet less than what you were." Without hesitation, Thor knelt before them. "If it means saving Asgard, I accept." The Norns extended their hands, and from the well they drew a chalice filled with water that shimmered like liquid starlight. Thor drank deeply, and as the water coursed through him, he felt his very essence unraveling and rebuilding. Memories of his past, his pride, his arrogance, they all melted away, replaced by something purer, something infinite. He rose, transformed. His eyes burned with the wisdom of the ages, his strength amplified beyond measure. The runes of the cosmos etched themselves into his skin, and he felt the power of the world tree flowing through him. He was no longer just Thor, god of thunder. He was Rune King Thor. The Norns spoke once more. "You are now bound to the fate of all realms, Thor. Go and fulfill your destiny." Thor emerged from the portal into a scene that stole his breath. Asgard, the once magnificent realm of the gods, was a shadow of its former self. The golden spires of Valhalla were blackened and broken. Smoke and ash filled the air, and cries of the wounded echoed across the ruins. Doomsday had made Asgard his kingdom, a kingdom of death and despair. Thor's presence was immediately noticed. Survivors hiding among the ruins peeked out, their eyes widening as they saw the transformed god. Rune King Thor radiated an aura of power and authority unlike anything they had seen before. His very presence rekindled a spark of hope in their hearts. "He has returned," one whispered. "Thor, our king," murmured another. But Thor had no time to revel in their awe. His gaze locked on the throne of Asgard, now twisted and defiled, where Doomsday sat like a dark god surveying his conquest. Around him were the remnants of the Einherjar, crushed and broken, their weapons scattered like fallen leaves. Thor clenched Mjolnir, which now pulsed with the energy of the cosmos. He stepped forward, his voice booming with a power that shook the very heavens. "Doomsday, your reign of terror ends now." The beast turned his glowing eyes toward Thor, and for the first time there was a flicker of hesitation in his expression. This was not the Thor he had fought before. This was something far greater. With an earth-shaking roar, Doomsday leaped from the throne, charging toward Thor with the ferocity of a storm. The ground cracked beneath his massive strides, and the very air seemed to ripple with his power. Thor stood his ground, waiting until the last moment before raising Mjolnir. The hammer collided with Doomsday's fists, and the impact created a shockwave that rippled across the realm, sending debris flying in all directions. The two titans clashed, each blow shaking the foundations of Asgard itself. Doomsday's strength was immense, but Thor now wielded the power of the runes, and his strikes were no longer fueled by mere rage. They were precise, calculated, and imbued with the wisdom of countless ages. Mjolnir danced in his hands, a blur of light and energy that struck Doomsday again and again. But the monster was relentless. Every blow he absorbed seemed to make him stronger, his adaptive physiology turning Thor's attacks into fuel for his own power. Thor knew this battle would not be won by brute force alone. As the fight raged on, Thor noticed something. The ruins of Yggdrasil's roots, faintly glowing beneath the palace. The World Tree's energy still lingered in Asgard, a remnant of its ancient connection to the realms. If he could channel that energy, he might have a chance to end this. Thor leapt back, creating distance between himself and Doomsday. Raising Mjolnir high, he called upon the power of the runes. "By the roots of Yggdrasil and the strength of the cosmos, I summon the ancient power of Asgard." The ground beneath him erupted with light as the roots of the world tree emerged, their energy wrapping around Thor like a second skin. His eyes burned with celestial fire as the power of the tree surged through him, merging with the runic magic already coursing in his veins. Doomsday, sensing the shift in power, roared and charged once more. But this time, Thor was ready. He unleashed a storm unlike any other, a tempest of cosmic lightning and runic energy that engulfed the battlefield. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend under the sheer force of his power. The lightning struck Doomsday again and again, each bolt searing through his armor and piercing his flesh. The monster howled in pain, his adaptive abilities struggling to keep up with the relentless assault. But even as Thor pressed his advantage, he knew he needed one final blow to end this. He called upon the last vestiges of Yggdrasil's energy, channeling it into Mjolnir until the hammer shone like a newborn star. "This is for my father, for my brother, for Sif, and for Asgard," Thor bellowed, his voice carrying the weight of his grief and determination. He hurled Mjolnir with all his might, the hammer streaking through the air like a comet. The hammer struck Doomsday square in the chest, releasing a blast of energy that lit up the sky. The force of the impact shattered the ground beneath them, creating a massive crater that swallowed both combatants. When the dust settled, Thor stood at the edge of the crater, his body trembling with exhaustion. Doomsday lay at the bottom, motionless. For the first time, the unstoppable force of destruction had been stopped. Thor fell to his knees, the weight of his victory and his losses crashing down on him. The people of Asgard began to emerge from their hiding places, their cheers and cries of relief filling the air. But Thor felt no triumph. As he looked at the ruins of his home and thought of the sacrifices that had been made, he knew his journey was far from over. The crown of Asgard lay at his feet, tarnished and cracked. Thor picked it up, staring at it for a long moment before placing it on his head. The All-Father was gone. Loki was gone. Sif was gone. Thor was all that remained, and now he was not just the god of thunder, he was the king of Asgard.